Hi everyone, and welcome to TWF Powerrr Might. I, Jonathan Coachman, with Mike today, and with Paulie Dangerously. And today on Powerrr Might, we have a good show here today on Powerrr Might. Yesterday we saw Kingly Fun. We saw a fighting Kingly, which was won by Braun Strowman yesterday on Collision or Hit. You know, and we do wonder what else we're going to see here today on Powerrr Might. Jonathan Coachman says if we're going to see more of Braun Strowman or not. Well, that's hard to say. Mike today says if we're going to see more of Braun Strowman or not, since it was Braun Strowman who won a fighting Kingly yesterday, that it had Goofy, Shrek, Bo, and Rainbow Bride in it, and he did am up, winning that yesterday on Collision or Hit. Well, he didn't win nothing besides winning the match, Paulie Dangerously says, so I don't really see why he would want to be in one of those things, since he didn't win the match at all. You know? Well, here comes Braun Strowman coming to the ring now, and he does got something to say. So yesterday I won a fighting Kingly, which I only threw out beat Rainbow Bright, Goofy, Shrek, and Poe, and at the end of the day, I didn't really win anything out of it, and some folks most likely will scathe me for that. But then again, we didn't do many of those. We didn't really do so many of those. So it was cool to do one of those yesterday. Even though we didn't win nothing out of it. But I do know someone out here, someone who wants to get started, someone who I think that should just put me in the right to fight for the TWF heavyweight and world heavyweight winnings. Giving to the grounds that I think I would make a good one. So, Cody Rhodes, I'm hoping that you get by John Cena and The Rock, because if you do, you might be fighting me. Braun Strowman, why would anyone want to see you as the TWF heavyweight fighter or world heavyweight fighter when they can see me, Chris Jericho? First off, Chris, I have nothing against you. I think you're a good wrestler, even though I don't know why you're still in AEW, because they haven't done anything great with you beyond being the former AEW heavyweight fighter and two-time ROH heavyweight fighter. That's it. You want to know something? And I've done a lot more things than that, Braun Strowman. I was a former WWF heavyweight fighter when it was for Wand with the world heavyweight winnings. I was a two-time WCW heavyweight fighter when that was a thing before it became the world heavyweight winnings. Hell, I even gone on to win the world heavyweight about I'm going to say at least 7, maybe 8-time heavyweight fighter. On top of being the first AEW heavyweight fighter and being the two-time ROH heavyweight fighter. But I think that folks out there would be more happy to see me with a strap than they would be happy to see you. I won a lot more things than you ever did. WF hard middle winnings. WF Evenland winnings, WF, WCW light heavyweight winnings, which became WCW, WFWE one. What else did I do? Oh, I don't know. Two-time WWE 4-1 Reich fighter. Won that with former MACW, WCW, WFWE, whatever. And I was also a free two-time WF and WWE World Tag Team fighter. Chris, with I won it, with Chris Benoit, and then with, Christian Cage and And I also did a lot more things than that. Yeah, Chris, we all know you're gonna say you're a two-time SMW tag team fighter. You won some straps in NGPW. You won some shit in AAA. Great for you. But you're telling me that I think I'd make a greater world heavyweight fighter than you. Is that so, Braun Strowman? Because when you won the world heavyweight winnings, the 26 between FYL one, you beat Bill Goldberg, held it for some time, and then lost it to Bray Wyatt. And you only won it because Roman Reigns pulled out due to his health at the time, and he was set to fight Bill Goldberg, and you got his spot. Yeah, but at least I do more good things than you ever did as WWF heavyweight, WCW heavyweight, AW heavyweight, and ROH heavyweight fighter. And I don't need to sit there and some fake Jericho onlook followership or learning tree or whatever you're naming the groups these days. Yeah, well, guess what, Braun Strowman? There's a hidden breaker with your name on it. Well, Chris Jericho wanted to do the hidden breaker on Braun Strowman. Only Braun Strowman was just too big and too mighty and slammed Chris Jericho instead, Jonathan Coachman says. You would think that Chris Jericho being in the skilled wrestling business as long as he has been, you'd think he'd be wise enough, Mike today said, not to pull some stunt like that on Braun Strowman. Yeah, well, Chris Jericho isn't all that bright, Paulie dangerously says, because he'd seek to do a hidden breaker on a bigger man like Braun Strowman. So Chris Jericho's wit is not with him as of right now. You come back here, Chris Jericho. That's what I thought. You're a weakling. A weakling who somehow thinks he's the shit. Well, you want to be a weakling, Chris Jericho? Well, that's fine with me, because you played the weakling shit. You played the weakling heel for most of your time and as a wrestler anyway. And I got the hidden breaker on you. Look at that, Paulie dangerously says. Chris Jericho got the hidden breaker on Braun Strowman. Paulie dangerously says, yeah, and he's doing the walls of Jericho on him. Ha ha ha. Yeah, so much. He's being a weakling. Paulie dangerously says, I love it. You like it, Jonathan Coachman says, but that's been Chris Jericho's mindset wherever he's been. Play the weakling heel, hit folks from behind, Jonathan Coachman says. Nothing to be onlooked here, Mike today says. Chris Jericho is not going to get any onlook for what he did here today. Well, now Chris Jericho thinks he's going to be leaving now. And now look, it's Astronema, the overseer of leadership at a toy wrestling gathering. Haven't seen her in some time. Well, Astronema, Corone, you must be looking well. Yeah, thank you, Chris Jericho. But I just happened to see you pulled some stunt on Braun Strowman. So guess what? Here today on Power or Might, it's Chris Jericho. in whatever offshoot you're playing these days, fighting Braun Strowman. I'll get to it. Shit. Well, we do know that Chris Jericho is not going to be happy, Jonathan Coachman says, knowing that he now has to get in the ring and fight irked or angered Braun Strowman, Jonathan Coachman says. Mike today says, yeah, Chris Jericho has woken up a sleeping Ethel, and now he made his bed, now he has to lie in it now. I'll tell you what right now, Paulie dangerously says, Chris Jericho will just give him the code, the hidden breaker, like he did before. And Braun Strowman just slammed Chris Jericho again, Jonathan Coachman says. And now he's going to throw him outside the ring. Well, Mike today says Braun Strowman's now going to be playing Steel Horse and not Chris Jericho out of the ring, back in the ring, Mike today says. How is that fair? How can Braun Strowman do that shit to folks? Paulie dangerously says. That's not fair to Chris Jericho. Well, Braun Strowman is now going to beat Chris Jericho here today on Power or Might. Jonathan Coachman says. 1, 2, 3. Ding, ding, ding. Here is your winner, Braun Strowman. And Braun Strowman has beat Chris Jericho here today. On Power or Might. And Chris Jericho might think before he picks a fight with someone who he knows he can't beat, Jonathan Coachman says. Well, Mike today said hopefully Chris Jericho has learned something about starting something with Braun Strowman. And hopefully he'll learn that if you wake up a sleeping Ethel, it's going to come after you. You know, Mike today says. Well, knowing Chris Jericho, Paulie dangerously says, he's not going to really learn anything from this. You know, he's going to start something, and he's going to keep on coming back because he's not right in the head, and he doesn't know when to call it yield. Paulie dangerously says, all right, everyone. We're going to shift away now, Jonathan Coachman says, to Tony Schiavone. Thank you, Jonathan Coachman and Mike today. I'm going to be talking with Chris Jericho here today on Power Mike. All right, Chris Jericho. You know, I have talked to you many times during your run in WCW and in your AEW run. So by now you should know that I've talked to you many times. Why did you start something with Braun Strowman? Well, Tony Schiavone, you want to know the answer to the asking thing? Because Braun Strowman, he's big, he's dumb. And if anyone should be next to fight Cody Rhodes, or John Cena, or The Rock, it should be me, not Braun Strowman. As you know, I'm the only man who, I'm the only one that can say that I have won both the WWF, WCW, AEW, and ROH heavyweight winnings. And I know I'd make one hell of a TWF heavyweight fighter as well. Chris Jericho, we know all about your run as WWF heavyweight fighter or two-time WCW heavyweight fighter, which became the World Heavyweight winnings, which you would go on to win at least 8, at least to go on to lead about 6 times. We know all about you being an AEW heavyweight fighter and the two-time ROH heavyweight fighter in AEW as well. But picking a fight with Braun Strowman, it's not one of the wisest things you have ever done. Well, put it this way. Braun Strowman has not lived underneath the wisdom tree. Braun Strowman has not been in the Jericho Onward gathering. And if Braun Strowman thinks that by beating me, he thinks this is over, he can think again. Well, I guess Chris Jericho is still, going to be he's still dead set on warring with Braun Strowman, which is not wise in my belief. Back to you, Jonathan Coachman and Mike today. Well, thank you, Tony Schiavone, for talking with Chris Jericho here today on Power or Might. And it's all the time we got it for Power or Might. I, Jonathan Coachman, with Mike today and Paulie Dangerously, we hope you like Power or Might. And we'll see you tomorrow for Monday Night Raw or Moonday Night Raw.